I'm Dave Cawley, investigative journalist and host of the podcast Cold. In October of 1985, a woman named Cherie Warren left work at a busy Salt Lake City office
to meet her estranged husband at a downtown auto dealership.
She never made it home. Cherie's car surfaced weeks later in Las Vegas.
In the parking lot of a hotel casino.
No one knows how it got there.
Strange. It was strange.
Both Cherie's estranged husband and her boyfriend raised suspicion for investigators.
I kind of thought that he might have done something.
But no arrests were ever made. In Cold Season 3, we dig into double lives, make new connections in the case, and examine the difficulty raised by reasonable doubt.
We want answers just as much as anyone else.
They have creeps like that now too, so nothing's changed.
That's the new Cold Season 3, The Search for Cherie, now available anywhere you get your podcasts.
All right, Jeff, so you move out of your parents' house. You're how old at this age?
Yeah, so at this age, I'm about 17, 18 years old.
You're not finished in high school. You're working at the pizza place off and on, but you moved in with, words you said, not so great of a guy.
Yeah, correct. So this guy was involved with, he was a gangster, and I really hate even saying that. The whole thing is just a joke. But, yeah, so that was the guy I moved in with, so I started picking up on some of the stuff that gang members do. At this point, we were getting pounds of weed, and it just progressed. Things were getting worse, and, I was resentful. But at the same time, I got to tell you, I missed my family so much. I did have a good childhood, and I didn't have a rough lifestyle or childhood. I made it rough for myself.
Did you ever have moments where you looked in the mirror? Because I know I did my active addiction, where you go, who is this guy looking back? How did I get here?
It's awful. You're absolutely. I got that all the time, and it was just so hard to. Well, I didn't know who I was. I was trying so hard to be somebody, and those substances gave me that release. But at this point, the substances kind of weren't working anymore, and it became really an addiction, and I had to do it to get through the day. And I was really disgusted with myself, and I had to just keep doing. I was active in my addiction, and I could not stop.
It's interesting that he says that because, with a lot of times, Dr. Matt, we hear this on the podcast where people are in their active addiction and they're no longer doing the substances for what they initially started.
Right.
They're doing them.
In fact, that always happens. Right?
Just to get even, just to feel, believe it or not, normal.
Just to bring yourself up to a baseline that used to be your normal.
Yeah, and so you go, man, I'm just doing this just to stay normal. I'm not having fun. This is not a good time. And the addictive brain takes over, and you're just in
you're
survival.
A slave to the substance.
So you're doing that, and you're doing some stuff that you shouldn't be doing with your new roommate. I'm guessing this doesn't end good.
It doesn't. It doesn't end good, and it gets worse. And what happened was in the gang, they were dealing with a substance called cocaine, and that was really the first time that I got introduced with that drug. And for as crazy as I was doing the acid, the mushrooms, the pot, the alcohol, man, I just didn't want to touch it. And so what happened was I got put in a place, and they gave me a certain amount of cocaine, and they taught me how to weigh it and how the whole thing works. Without getting into too much detail, I was basically in a trap house selling cocaine to a bunch of whoever. And so I remember this vividly.
What does that mean, a trap house?
So trap house is basically...
it's like an empty, abandoned house, or a house that that everybody knows has the drugs. You go up there, okay. You knock on it, you tell them what you want, the hand reaches out, they give it to you.
Gotcha.
Yep, exactly.
I know that from watching CSI.
Yeah, of course.
So at this point, I'm one of those dudes, and there was a guy that owned telemarketing company, and he had his business, and he kept coming to the house and over and over again, and I kept serving him the cocaine, and he asked me, he says, "Hey man, have you ever tried this?" I says, "No, I don't do it." And what this guy would do is he would, I try not to glorify or have any war stories with this, but he would, rock it up and smoke, and that's how you make crack cocaine. And so, he was basically a crackhead, and he asked me, have I ever done this? I said, no, I can't do it. As time went on, I eventually tried it, and that was a no-no. Especially with the guys I was spending time with, that was just a no-no. We don't do that.
You don't get high on your own supply.
No, you don't get high on your own supply. And, I thought, well, I didn't know anything of it. I knew it was addicting, but I didn't know how far it could take you. I didn't know how bad it could just suck you in. From somebody that hasn't done it, you think, well, just like little things, I've had the flu. I've been sick before, I can overcome it, but this was like nothing I've ever experienced in my life. It just grabbed a hold of me, and I just started doing it, and started doing it with the guy, and anyways, my people found out and beat me up and got kicked out, and so now I was on my own, and I had a cocaine habit at this point, and it gets really bad.
So bad the fact that you end up in prison.
That's correct. Yep.
How long did you do?
Yep. So I did 3 years the first time, and I had this car my dad got me. He says, "Hey man, if you can get sober and start working for me, I'll take care of you. I want you to change." And I meant it, and I wanted to be a good son, a good brother. I did. I just couldn't do it. I did it the best that I could, and I just could not reel it in. And so I had this car, and this brand new car, and it's starting to get I'm wrecking it. I'm starting to trade it for cocaine. I completely lost myself. I had the connections, but nobody liked me. I started getting crazy. So now I lost my family. Nobody wanted to be around me. And I started going crazy, listening to the rap. I know it sounds funny, but I got to tell you, you listen to it long enough, you become angry. I was living what they were saying. And I remember I ran out of money. I ran out of cocaine, and I had nowhere to go. And keep in mind, I have a daughter, and I have another one on the way. And, I was everything that you did not want to be. And so I was roaming around on the streets of Salt Lake, and I committed some serious crimes that led me into prison. And the crazy part is I started off rollerblading, wrestling, grew up in a good neighborhood, but I became that dude that was from the hood. I'm on the grind. I completely changed my life for the worse, and I could not get out of it. And at this point, I was so empty, lonely, and fearful that I just didn't care. I'd do anything to make money. I'd do anything to get more cocaine.
That's a pretty low point for you. Were you aware at that point? Like, what's your self-awareness at? Here you are, you're out of money. You have dependents. You're committing crimes. Yeah. What's your state of mind at that point? Is there self-awareness that there's something wrong and you need to change, or is it like an angry, resentful, you against the world mindset?
I think it's more angry, resentful against the world. I was angry at myself. It was confusing for me. I didn't think I was this guy. It got to the point where the bad guys didn't want to even hang around me. I became the worst guy. And, mentally, I still had the ego, still had the false pride, but I became the scary dude, carrying guns. I became the dude that nobody wanted to be around. And at the same time, I felt like I needed the respect too. And so, I committed a crime with a gun. And what a story, what a story. I was completely a different dude, and I went into a store, and I committed a robbery.
Armed robbery.
Armed robbery, two of them. Yep.
And so because of that, they send you away. You get 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think a lot of people at home going, you go to 3 years, that's 3 years without doing drugs.
Right.
So that's your rehab. You should come out rehabilitated.
Or was it 3 years without doing drugs? Aren't there drugs in prison?
There, things have really changed in the early 90s, late 90s, and, things were a lot different. Now it's pretty restricted, but there's drugs everywhere you go. Drugs everywhere you go. And I remember walking into prison in Draper at the point of the mountain. All those things that I was on the street, all I wanted to do was to go home. I just wanted to be that kid again. I wanted to be with my family. And they were saying, who do you want us to call if you die or send the body to? And I just couldn't believe it. I mean, this was some real stuff right now. All that stuff, all that music, all that lifestyle led me to this place. And then I started to kind of, I thought to myself, something's got to change. And so...
Well, you said it. I like the term you used. You said false pride.
Yeah.
And it sounds like when you walked into prison, you realized how false it was, and it was scary for you.
Super scary. And it wasn't me. It was not me. And... I was put in the old death row, but it's UNF5, and it was really packed, and I didn't know what time it was. The only way I knew what time it was is just when they served the food, and so it's funny how people change when they have that gift of desperation and being fearful, and I had that,
Desperation really is a gift.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's crazy. And so we're going to find out more about Jeff and what he's doing now. Fascinating story. You're listening to Project Recovery. We'll be right back in a few seconds.
Two years ago, Americans watched in horror as a crisis unfolded at the Kabul airport.
There's desperation and anguish.
More than 80,000 Afghans have since arrived in America. But this story is still unfolding. I'm Andrea Smartin. In my new podcast, Stranger Becomes Neighbor, we'll find out what happens to these new arrivals in our communities. Who would help our newest neighbors? Follow us at kslpodcast.com, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else you listen.
So you got that gift of desperation that says, I need some change. What did that gift look like?
Yeah, so I mean, it looked like doing whatever it took. But the hard part is I was around people that wanted to fight. It was kind of strange. I guess this whole time being this dude, I just really wasn't that dude. It was a survival. I just had to do it for survival, and I miss my family so much. But no matter what I did, I was stuck there. But the gift of desperation. It kind of looked like hope, I'd call my family on a payphone, not a payphone, but on the prison phone that does cost money. And as long as I knew that they were okay, my dad told me to stay strong. We're doing fine here. That gave me hope. And it's funny, when I got into that, that fearful mode of not knowing if my family's going to be there or alive when I get out. I was desperate for anything. I knew something had to change. I just didn't want to be like the guys that I was around. And so, being close to my family really kept me strong in there. And, I knew right then that I wasn't the guy that I was committing these crimes. I just wasn't. I was desperate.
So what does recovery look like for you? I mean, how did you find sobriety?
So I found sobriety. I went to a place called Highland Ridge and the Haven, and that's when I was introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous and just living a life sober and spending time with people that are doing the same things that I was trying to do. And so,
did you go into Highland Ridge after after your prison time?
Yeah, so it's kind of a confusing story. So I did get convicted for the two crimes. One of them I put the gun away, so I did 6 months in Oxbow facility, and for some crazy reason, the other one just disappeared. And so we kind of knew it was there, but it just disappeared. And so at this time, before I went to prison, I had the chance to go to Highland Ridge. And then within hours, I went straight to the Haven, which is an inpatient program. And so I had those tools before, going into prison. So that really helped out a lot and kind of gave me a little bit, just a little bit more of an idea of what it takes to be sober,
So what is your sobriety date?
So my sobriety date now is January 6th of 2020.
So just recently?
Just recently. And it was an ugly one. This is a battle that I've been fighting my whole life. And I've had periods of long-term sobriety. And, what that looks like is basically getting out of my will and, just be willing. Just be willing to do something different and listening and, giving back, giving back.
So you're 8 months sober now. How are your kids?
So my 11-year-old son, when he was 11 in 2011, he passed away. So I hold a lot of guilt and shame about that. But my daughter now is 22 years old. She's doing great. I wish we were closer. What I had to do is we put her up for an open adoption. And so I'm sure she holds some resentment, but we were able to talk. And the only way for that to happen is sobriety and being clean. That would not happen if I was using. And, I have a problem with relationships, my friend. I have a problem with getting my heart broke. It hurts, Sometimes it hurts worse than other times. But, I'm not used to walking through pain. I'm used to going to what's familiar and disappearing.
What does that mean, Dr. Bat?
Well, you tell me if this fits for you, but it's avoidance. Pain, emotional pain, usually more than physical pain, can be scary to a person. And if we don't feel like we have the skills and the tools and support, then we try to avoid. And personalities are all different. Some people like to take those challenges head on, but most of us like to avoid the pain if we can. And if you found something that really takes you away, like using a substance, it's pretty tempting not to go to that when your heart's broken, your emotions are hurt. Yeah.
So you say you got 8 months of sobriety under your belt right now.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm sure the listeners are curious about your son, an 11-year-old passing away. Yeah. Can you talk about what happened there?
Yeah, you bet. So at this point, I was sober. I was living in Heber, or actually Park City. My parents were in Heber, and to kind of make this short, I was in a meeting at the health department in Heber. And, everybody there drinks coffee, so I had my coffee, and I put it down by my phone. I noticed that my mom called me like 8 times, and I just left their house. And so it's actually my dad that called. And anyways, I called him back, and he said, "Hey, Mom's real sick. I need you to come home." He says, "You don't need to speed, just come home." And so, of course, I got in my car, left the meeting, and drove to my parents' house. And my mom was standing in the garage with the garage door open, and my dad's pacing back and forth on the phone. And I'm like, okay, what happened? I've never been through something like this. This is the first time something like this has happened. And my dad's crying, and I'm like, what happened? And he says, I'm sorry, Jeff, your son passed away. Now, I thought my son was, he loves to ride his bike, and, unfortunately, and there's no excuse here, but, I just wasn't a good father. And so I would have loved to be, I just really hold a lot of guilt and shame for that. But anyhow, I thought he got hurt on his bike. When somebody passes away, you think, well, they're going to come back. They're not hurt that bad. And so, at this point, I'm trying to call Liz, which is my son's mother, and calling, and nobody's picking up, and at this point, she got married, and her husband picked up the phone, and he says, "Look, I'm sorry, man. Jeffrey passed," and so it was kind of an accident. It was really bizarre how it happened, and so I was sober at that time, and I was seeing a therapist up in I think it was Camas, and he said to me, you have some heavy lifting to do. This is you got hit hard, and I don't know why he said this, but he says, hey, if there's ever an excuse to use, I mean, this would be it, but that he wasn't saying go do that, but I took that as, you know what, you're absolutely right. And I was dating a female in Park City, and she was drinking at the time, so she couldn't really be available for me, and I just was like, well, I can't handle this. I just don't want to feel this anymore. And I said, I'm gonna, I want to leave the world right now. And so that's when I relapsed again.
And your son, it was an accident that happened? It
was an accident, yeah. So the story kind of goes like this. Do you want me to share that? Or?
Sure. If you're comfortable. If not,
yeah,
it's
it's fine. So what happened was Liz had some more kiddos, and so he was the oldest out of his brothers or brother and sister, and so he had a little brother named Landon, and they were playing kind of like cowboys and Indians, and for whatever reason he went upstairs in his mom's room, grabbed a belt, and somehow made this bow and arrow, and so he lived downstairs. His room was downstairs, and he played video games, and he had this little baby chair, and her husband worked out a lot. So I don't know if you guys know that pull-up bar that you put, those infomercials, you can put it in your door frame. Mm-hmm. And so, it was just kind of an accident. He put the belt on there and pretend like he was hanging, but he got stuck and wasn't able to lift himself up. And so, I wasn't there. I got him a season's pass to the canyon so we could go skiing together, and we had plans to spend time together. In fact, he passed away January 17th of 2011, and so it was the winter time, and I remember that's when people pass, you remember the last thing that you say to them, but yeah, so I have been hit hard with a lot of things, and most of it I created myself.
Well, we're sure sorry to hear about that. Accidents, childhood things do happen. It's heartbreaking, and that obviously. Did you feel good about the last thing you said to your son? Do you remember? You said
I remember what I said, and it was a Sunday, and he had to go to school on Monday, and I couldn't get a hold of Liz. Seemed like something that happens a lot, and so I remember we were in Park City, and we were at Walmart, and I was like, look, you can just stay with me for the night, and we'll figure it out for tomorrow. And so he's like, yeah, getting excited to, spend the night with me. So we went to Walmart to grab some dinner, and sure enough, Liz called, and she says, yeah, Jeffrey's got to get to school tomorrow. And so I told him, look, I love you, and, you're going to have to go to school tomorrow and, go back down to Salt Lake. And I told him, hey, I promise you next weekend I'll come and get you, and then we'll spend time together. And so that next week I called and called and called. She didn't pick up. Another week went by, called and called and called. She didn't pick up, and he ended up passing away. So, I just.
So that last moment with him was a nice moment.
It was a good moment. I wish I could have followed through with it, and
sure.
I wish we could have, gone snowboarding, skiing, for the season. But it didn't happen. But yeah, gave him a hug and
Man.
So
sorry.
It's all right.
You've had a tough run at it, man. But you're here today. You got 8 months of sobriety underneath your belt.
That's right.
So what does the future look like for Jeff?
Yeah, thanks for asking, man. It's exciting. It's hopeful. A lot of good things are going to happen, man. I'm excited about this. So I was in St. George. So I've been in St. George I graduated, as you know, like I said before, Brighton Recovery Center, and at the mansion. So I graduated there, and the goal was to stay there, maybe get into the sober living, the community center that was getting built, and financially, and it just wasn't finished yet. So I went back down, which was a really good thing. I went back down to St. George, stayed with my family for a little bit, and it was awesome. I was able to make the coffee every morning, play golf with my dad, watch the Home and Garden, what is it, HGTV with my mom in the morning. It's awesome. Yeah. Watch the Twins. I don't know if you know the Twins.
The Scott Brothers.
The Scott Brothers. Yeah. So just normal stuff, and so I got to experience that. Playing golf. I'm not great at it, but I love playing it. My dad does real estate up at the Ledges, and so he's a part of that community up there. So I was able to get golf for free, so it was awesome. But, real quick, this last 2 years when I was, active in my addiction, I got congestive heart failure, so, how we talked about how I started way back in, the late 90s, with the hard drugs, just the history of that created congestive heart failure. So, I had to get out of the heat. And the goal was to get back into the Salt Lake sober community and just, people that are winners. And, so I'm saving up money, trying to get up there. But, the heat and my heart don't go together well. And so, I'm so grateful to be up here. I work a good program. And, Ian's my sponsor. He's done just so much for me, and he helps me get involved and, teaches me a lot of things to be good to myself and to help other people. And one of the biggest things is it's okay to be you. You don't have to change for anybody. No need to please people. Please your higher power. And so I have a long ways to go. I've been through a lot. And, so doing this podcast is just a gift, such a blessing. I've always wanted to share my story. And so, when I was in St. George, I kept telling my parents, one day I'm going to do a podcast because I love podcasts. I listen to podcasts. And they're like, yeah, do it. And so, I was with Ian yesterday. You called, and, he wasn't able to make it. And I says, I'm going to do it. This is my thing. This is my calling. And so, this is a gift, man. It just worked out well, and I'm just so grateful that you guys allowed me to come here and share my story. And man, there's so much hope. And I try to live in love and try to take the good out of bad. I try to assume good intent, and it's not easy. There's ups and downs, and as I kind of shared a little bit about my story, I can't be the guy that I want to be by not doing anything. For me, it takes work. I have to do something every day for my recovery and for me to connect with my higher power.
Amazing. Wonderful. Thank you. We're appreciative and grateful that you were willing to come on and share your story. And my takeaway, Jeff, from your story is, you have this theme in there of personal responsibility. I noticed that you're only 8 months into this sobriety, but you're not blaming others, and you're taking personal responsibility. And I think that's a good prognostic indicator of how this is going to go for you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. And for all the listeners or anybody that's listening to this that thinks that they can't do it, thinks that their condition is unique and different, and nobody's like them. I got to tell you, I've been through it, and I know what it's like, and how dark it gets, and how lonely it feels. But there is hope, and there's people that want to help, and there's places to go, and like such as this podcast, just developing a different way to live, and just reaching out to the people that need help. And this is a vessel to building that. And You guys rock. You guys are so awesome, man.
No,
I
you're
really
awesome, and
appreciate
I've
it.
got nothing but love for you, buddy.
Thanks. Love
And you
you too,
name
bro.
the day and the time, and I'll go snowboarding with you anytime,
Dude, that
brother.
sounds great.
Let's do
I'm
it.
excited.
You listen to Project Recovery, a podcast about addiction, more importantly about recovery, brought to you by our friends at useonlyasdirected.org. 3-part solution: speak out, opt out, and of course, throw out. Project Recovery is a KSL podcast.
The contents of this program are for informational purposes only. The program is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician, licensed therapist, or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you've heard on this program. KSL does not recommend or endorse any specific tests, physicians, products, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned on the program. Reliance on any information provided on the program is solely at your own risk.